About a quarter way into Poppy Playtime 2, you'll find this terrifying cutout of a bunny. But did you know the devs intentionally put this here to scare a YouTuber?
I know when your birthday is. June 28th.
Now this would be creepy if it actually was my birthday, but it's not. It is Markiplier's birthday, and his reaction did not disappoint.
I know when your birthday is. June 28th. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm assuming that you just Googled that because that's pretty public information. You just have a nap.
And it turns out Mark doesn't have the only YouTuber Easter egg, because if you paid attention to the tapes lying around on the floor, you probably saw this.
You're sure it wasn't a person?
Ain't no person that's 50 feet long with 1,000 legs.
Was I the only one whose mind was blown when they saw Jacksepticeye? Yeah, for whatever reason, he's a Playtime co-employee who saw something in the factory that he shouldn't have. We'll find out exactly who this spider is later, but there's a more notable spider in Chapter 2, and that is Mommy Longlegs. Of course, she's the big bad boss of the new chapter, and when hide and seek ended, we got one of the most brutal deaths in the entire game.
What have you done? You can't do this to me!
Well, did you know this is originally going to be even more gross? Yes, one of the storyboard artists revealed that Mommy Longlegs' head was going to be crushed instead of her body. And I mean, look at this. Pretty cool to see how things can change. And that brings us to a huge secret found in the files. There's an unfinished version of Poppy Playtime hidden that anyone can play. And on the surface, most of it is pretty much the same, with missing textures, broken animations. You can tell this wasn't meant to be found by players. But that's when some differences were found. And one of the coolest parts is some secret Poppy dialogue.
I know you came to find the ones who had disappeared all those years ago. But they're gone. They've been gone for a long time. Terrible things have happened. And I am the cause. Being able to exist as a doll, it has killed so many people. So much is unknown to you. Where do I even begin?
It turns out that Poppy might just be responsible for the disappearance of all the employees at Playtime Co., but for some reason, it didn't make the final version. There's a lot of theories out there as to why things are changed, but I guess we'll have to wait for Chapter 3 to learn more. One of the biggest theories that people are talking about right now is the existence of Huggy Wuggy. After we killed him in Chapter 1, it was safe to say that Huggy Wuggy's story came to an end. But when entering the waterworks in Chapter 2, you could find bits of blue fur and blood on the wall. This could be the bottom of the pit that he fell down, but if that's the case, where's the body? Well, my theory is that the same hand which took Mommy Longlegs dragged Huggy Wuggy up the wall and into that hole, never to be seen again. And if you're confused as to just what this hand is, then that brings us to Experiment 1006. Its nickname is the Prototype, and Experiment 1006 has been the secret villain of the game since Chapter 1. In the first part, you can find a tape left by the scientist who explains that the Prototype is something that broke out and began killing people. Originally, everyone thought this was Huggy Wuggy, but that idea was debunked thanks to this new secret tape from Chapter 2.
Experiment 1006, the Prototype. A close call occurred this week in which he nearly breached containment. One casualty occurred. The Prototype seems to possess an unprecedented level of intelligence beyond that of all other test subjects, as well as an alarming willingness to commit violence. Huggy Wuggy remains the optimal outcome due to his sufficient intelligence paired with maximum obedience. End of log.
As you can see from the creepy hand, it is the same thing we saw take Mommy Longlegs, and it's probably gonna be the final boss of Poppy Playtime. I mean, something intelligent enough to escape like that sounds absolutely terrifying. But a secret that tons of people miss is hiding in plain sight. During the game station section, you might have noticed that you could actually go into the train before doing any of the mini games, except you need to do the games in order to get the code. This is where things get interesting. It turns out that if you already know the train code, this happens. I can't believe it sends you straight to the end of the game without playing Whack-A-Huggy or running from PJ Pug-A-Pillar. And here's another trick. Right after losing the red hand to Mommy Longlegs, we have to build our own green hand, and it takes a lot of time, so here's how to get it way earlier. The second that Chapter 2 begins and you're looking at Poppy's open case, just spam the right-click button, and for some reason, you bring the green hand straight to you. Continue to spam right-click, and when it retracts, the green hand will be attached. Feels like a weird glitch that was definitely not meant to be found. And it's not the only thing the devs don't want us to see. Horoscope dug into the files of the game and discovered discovered there's a folder named Multiplayer. When he investigated further, he realized that there were options like a character selector and player models for Huggy Wuggy and Mommy Longlegs. Could this mean we'll see some kind of co-op play in the future? Or could there be a separate Poppy Playtime multiplayer game in the works? Only time will tell. But back in Chapter 1, you could find a tape left by an employee named Rich, where he was complaining pretty hard.
Nobody in this stupid company knows what they're doing. Oh, I swear, I haven't seen a single box in its place since they started flooding the storehouse with orphanage junk.
Cool tape, but Rich's story was far from over, because in Chapter 2's Toy Reject Room, you'll hear this.
I guess my words must have really inspired them to take action, because the next day I got demoted down here to the freaking island of misfit toys!
Yeah, his complaints got him demoted and sent to work in the rejects room, surrounded by ridiculous toys like Sir Poops-a-Lot. And he's not the only rejected toy in the warehouse. Owen the Oven can be found at the entrance to the storage room, and according to its description, this was a discontinued toy because for some reason, it was giving children third-degree burns. After being scrapped, the ovens were just left here, but it turns out if you grab one and move it into the light, you could spot a secret message on the back. It reads, "Why do they call it oven when you uff in the cold food and of out hot eat the food?" I feel like my brain just spazzed out reading that, but it is basically a copy pasta from a few years ago, okay? But enough about bringing things into the game, it's time to bring Poppy Playtime to the real world, because if you thought the game was horrifying enough, it's about to get a whole lot worse. Yes, a Poppy Playtime movie has been officially announced, and the developers have teamed up with a production company named Studio 71. Apparently a producer who worked on it and the Lego movie will be helping out, so expect to see Poppy and his friends on the big screen in a few years. It'll be terrifying. And if that sounds scary to you, just wait until you see what happens to Candy Cat. One of the interactive boards you find in the game gives a chance to feed Candy Cat, but after several times, it begins to get weird.
More candy! Nom, 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 nom. Okay, no more candy. My tummy's full. Nom, nom, nom. Stop! Nom, nom, nom.
And that's not the only cutout that becomes cursed, because in the Toy Reject Room, there's a dino cutout named Brawn. He tells jokes each time the button is pressed, but once you reach the third one, it gets unsettling.
What do you call the scariest dinosaur?
Sounds a little bit like foreshadowing to me. And it's not just here. Something else you could find is a note which explains that Playtime Co. has actually started the construction of a new lab to run even more tests. This is either the lab that held Experiment 1006, or it's a secret laboratory that's holding something so much more sinister. It just shows how obsessed Playtime Co. became with making living experiments instead of normal toys. I mean, the factory itself is messed up, so imagine what's inside of the secret lab. You could also find an assessment form on a child named Michaela, who did all 3 trials in the game station, but wasn't very good at them. When she got to statues, she was screaming and pointing at something when nothing was there. You could then find a note from a few days later where Michaela did the trials again, and all of a sudden, she was great at every minigame. But when she went to the statues room, she was once again distracted by something in the darkness. In both these assessment forms, the person writing is cut off, so whatever Michaela is talking to, it is killing scientists. Another secret happens at the end of the minigame, because out of bounds, you could find this secret text from the developer saying, "Thanks for playing." It is barely noticeable, and while there are a lot of random messages hidden in the game, this one looks like it's actually meant to be found. Nice little love letter to the fans, but the devs have gone even further. You may have noticed there are a lot of children's drawings scattered around the new chapter, things like kids with Huggy Wuggy or Mommy Longlegs. They're hung up in Elliot Ludwig's office and in the game station, but what you might not know is that a lot of these drawings are actually fan-made. Yes, Mob Games opened a competition to create a drawing, and these are the 5 winners, so the more you know. But in the original trailer for Chapter 2, there are some pretty noticeable differences that never made it into the final game. People in the community noticed that PJ Pugapillar has a completely different design from what he looks like in the trailer. He used to look way more like a caterpillar, but was changed to give him the cuter pug face. As well as this, you might have noticed that Daisy was being used in the musical memory game, but in the final version, it turns out to be Bunzo. And honestly, Bunzo was way creepier than Daisy, so I don't know how to feel about this. And the same can be said for speedrunning. Chapter 2 has only been out for a few weeks, and people are already breaking world records every single day. Thanks to various glitches, some people have been able to beat Chapter 2 in just under 5 minutes. Every time I check this, the record has been broken again, so let's see how low these speedrunners can get. Subscribe if you enjoyed. It's been Tommy, and I'll see you next time on T5G.